Hello, everybody. Welcome to Life on Mars. I'm Àlex, CEO and founder of MarsBased. And in today's episode, I'll be answering some of the questions sent by the community, sent by friends, sent by some former clients and people from the industry, people we respect and admire and who've been following us on social media or our entrepreneurial career so far. We've been recording some of these episodes lately, and they're performing as well as the other podcast. So why not? We get really interesting questions, and I think that it's good that we take a little bit of a break away from doing interviews and fireside chats, particularly because, in a sense, I have grown to be the start grind guy, the interviews guy, the fireside chats guy, right? And while that is really good because you get some sort of appreciation and reputation, I run a business and I'm the CEO of a company that might not get the front pages on major media outlets, but MarsBased will soon turn 90 years old. We make 2 million in revenue, completely bootstrapped, profitable from day one. We employ 20 something people. We work for several corporations, some of the biggest brands out there, like HP or FC Barcelona, just to name a couple of them. And so, of course, we're more than happy to answer questions from anybody and try to help as many people as possible because we have learned from other companies, most of the times bigger than us, sometimes as big as we are. And so, if we can be inspiration to somebody else, if our answers can help other people, be it from coming only from me or from our teammates or from my co-founders or from the team at Starbrand Barcelona, to will also be on the podcast. Happy to do it. I think we've got sufficient material here coming from social networks, from email, or even in person. So, whatever question you want to ask about bootstrapping, web development, technologies, the future of work, remote working, company culture, Ruby on Rails, you name it, right? Whichever thing that you want to learn from us about, just send a question at hola@marsbased.com, tweet at me or contact me on LinkedIn, send us an email, and I'll be happy. So let's go with the first one. This comes, first priority goes straight to the top from our friend Marc Collado, who used to be one of the manager of the campus of Ironhack in Barcelona, went on to work for other companies. Right now, he is chief product at With Music, excuse me. And he's also a great friend of mine. I just had lunch with him today, and he was like, "Dude, I got a question for you." So that goes up to the podcast. And also, I recorded another podcast in Catalan called Foca Terra, just in case you're interested. So if you want to, it's kind of like a talk show. We ramble on for 30 minutes about a different topic every week, but it's in Catalan exclusively. So it's great fun. We publish every Monday. So enough with the shameless plug. He asked me, "Who's the most brilliant individual you've ever worked with?" And I have to be very honest. The answer came to me right away. Like it went like boom, I got it. I could be politically correct and name my two co-founders because they're the best partners and co-founders one could ever dream of, Xavi and Jordi. And but that would be also the easy answer, right? And I'm not well known for giving canned responses or easy answers. I like to challenge questions. I like to challenge myself, and I've always been impressed and in awe of one person I used to work with when I was at Deloitte. His name is Angel Esteban. He was the kind of like the guy that knew how to do everything and anything in Java. Really great developer, much more of a back end and a front end person, if you ask me. But he had a solution for everything. He was technically gifted, and he still has a really, really, really big brain for everything. And I even dreamed at the beginning of MarsBased of hiring him because we were starting the company and he was starting his own startup as well in the real estate department, working with big data and whatnot. Pivoted 3, 4 times until it eventually became Bresby company. I think it raised like a few $1 million in an investment. Doing great in image recognition using machine learning for real estate properties and whatnot. They eventually became our clients now that I think of. And and so I was always impressed by the sheer determination and how many different implementations of different solutions he could ever come up with, right? So you would give him a problem when we were working shoulder to shoulder at Deloitte, and it's like, dude, I want to do this. How would you do it? It's like, well, you could do it A, B, C, and D, and this is going to be much more efficient, but it's going to take you longer to code. This is going to be cheaper to code, but you have to do more like testing. And this one is, it's kind of like risky because it's more like a patch, but you can do it only today, right? You don't need more than a day to code it. And this one is, you know, good for larger scale, but not so performant on like lower numbers. So I was like, wow, he's always like that. And so real impressed. I think that if I had to name somebody that would really, really, really hire at whatever cost for no particular position in the company whatsoever, I would choose him. Google him up, Angel Esteban, CEO of resby.ai, and his startup's great. Also, I'll salute him from here. I know that he sometimes listens to the podcast, so we should catch up together really soon. Great question, Mark. Second one, this is a fun one, actually. This is going to be very, very fast. Clemens, our friend Clemens from Barcino fame and Bourbon Creative. So if you are in Barcelona or in Spain in general, if you receive every Monday, Kik has a newsletter called Barcino, everything tech related to startups, interesting reads, podcasts, events, job openings, and news. It's great stuff. Definitely, I don't go a Monday without reading it because it's kind of like a really good digest. He asks, when are you going to launch the Startup Grind Mars chapter? Which is like, I don't know, dude. It's like, maybe that's kind of like a joke question. Um, um, Funnily enough, we are well known for running the Startup Grind Barcelona chapter. We are not so well known for having run this chapter in Andorra for a year. We ran a really small chapter with 3 events only. They went great, but because neither us or the other person we partnered with were living in Andorra, it made it difficult to run, right? So I don't think we'll be opening another chapter, let alone in freaking Mars. Ask Elon Musk about that. But at a certain point, we thought about opening other chapters or taking over other chapters that they were inactive, because in Startup Grind there are a few chapters that they ebb and flow, and sometimes they become inactive, and that's a really good complementary business or even a side project for a lot of people. Startup Grind has definitely helped MarsBased on the way up and the other way around. So on the contrary, if people are interested in opening or taking over a chapter, wherever it is, wherever you reside, your chapter is in zombie state, they don't do events anymore, there's never been a Startup Grind chapter, hit me up on email, alex@startupgrind.com. I can help you be set up with that chapter. So always looking for new people to run their local chapters. So yeah, from a joke question, kind of a funny question, I gave maybe a somewhat insightful or useful answer for people out there. The third one comes from Josh Feldberg, one of my best friends and ex-client. He's been a client of MarsBased in a couple of projects already. One of these persons also referring a lot of leads, and he's always promoting MarsBased to his other clients and partners, and people follow him on Twitter. So thank you a million times, Josh. I've been super supportive of the company, and you're one of the hooligans of MarsBased. He asked, what are your weaknesses as a business, and what do you want to improve on? I haven't really thought this through, because what I do here is kind of like reading them almost for the first time and improvising. But I think that I know I can think of something particularly interesting here, which is we are a company that could be easily twice as big. If not, I would even venture to say 5 times as big. We could grow up to 50 people easily and kind of like sustain the company culture and the way we run things. If we were to grow to 100 people, we would have to change a lot of things, but we could still be Mars-based. And I know my two co-founders don't think like that, so take it as a personal opinion. But I think that we do some things particularly well. And we still have got the mentality of a really, really, really small company, which helps us to be a boutique and keep the MarsBased touch for, striving for quality, quality over quantity and whatnot, for a lot of things, but hinders us from taking certain risks, trying new ideas, going all in on experiments we launch. We sometimes launch half-assed experiments. We don't really believe in them, then we have to shut them down. And it's painful, because you invest money, you invest time, you invest your gray matter as well. And it ends up not working because I think that we're still too conservative, extremely conservative, even though we're almost 90 years old as a company, extremely, I wouldn't say extremely flush with cash, but we've got a lot of reserves. We're very conservative, profitable every year, growing 30% profit at the end of the year. So definitely we cash flow, it's easy to manage for us. And so keep people on retainers, never lose clients. But we're still too conservative. I think that we should do better on risk and money management. We could invest more money on trying new things and to potentially gain an upside, and not to make more money, but just like maybe create a new business, maybe just invest it somewhere else and take some interesting returns. Maybe just help other people create companies, maybe acquire a certain company and just embrace them under the MarsBased umbrella. We want to improve on that. I don't know how the fuck are we going to do it, but definitely want to improve on trying new things, because eventually all agencies become kind of like a parody of themselves, and they only end up doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And whenever this is like a trend shift in the market, they get phagocytated by other people and new trends and new markets, and they don't know how to reinvent themselves. We don't want to be that kind of company. And so we're here for the long run. We've always said that this is a company for us to retire as founders, and not because we're going to sell. It's because we want to keep working on this company until we're fucking 65 and we fuck off and die. But I don't know, right? We should also decouple ourselves more from doing the macro and the micro, because I think that the founders are both on strategy and then on execution. And I think that this is not efficient. This is efficient when you're a startup and you're really small. First years, you got to be hands-on on everything. But past 20 people, I think founders should decouple themselves from execution, or just keep focused on sales, and the rest should be done by somebody else. I think it's a pretty long answer for a really short question. But yeah, that's a good one. Always, that's one of the challenges that we've got at the founders meetings every year, and we discuss the philosophy, mission, vision of the company and whatnot. And unfortunately, the hamster wheel of routine takes us back to execution. And yeah, we should do better in that. So thank you for making us, realize that we should do better. We should think these things through a little bit more often and give them more consideration, because otherwise we're not thinking big enough, and maybe we're not thinking long term. So yeah, great one. There's another one from Germán from Etc. This one is written in Spanish. Let me translate like on the fly. It is not recommended to create companies or co-found something with friends. What are the pros and the cons of doing it? Oh, he sends also a second question. I'm going to go over it later on. So, I funnily enough, I have been discussing this with Mark, the person I had lunch with today. And I always say that I've always been successful, and I've never had any major problems with friends nor family while doing business with them. But maybe because I haven't employed or hired them or worked for them just because they're friends or because they are family. It's because they're people I want to work with or for or hire. And because I consider them worthy of my respect and admiration. And they have to be at least A-class on what they do. Otherwise, I don't do business with them, or I don't really, or be somewhat aligned on that and then values, right? I have a lot of friends that I would never employ, never work for, or never do conduct any kind of business with. And they're my best friends. But I know that, I know them sufficiently to know that it's not gonna go well. Like, we don't belong to the same mindset. We don't beat to the same drum. And I don't know. So pros and cons. Like, I would start with the cons, right? Cons is it's really hard. The obvious answer is like really hard to separate personal from business. Let's get this over with. Like, everybody knows that. I would go somewhat farther and say that for me, one of the cons is that because I work with my two best friends, I know them too well that I can anticipate what they think whenever I want to come up with a new proposal. Let's say I've got a new business idea, something crazy, new business line, and I'm like, oh, I know that Xavi will say no because this and that, and then Jordi will be like, no, let's not do it. It's not the right moment. And it's like, because I know their answers, I know them too well, I censor myself and I'm like, fuck it. Let's scrap this idea and just go for something else. And maybe had I gone to them, I would have gotten a different answer. Like, oh yeah, perfect. This is the right time. And or maybe not the right time right now, but in 6 months we can reevaluate. And so it's me giving myself the no instead of waiting for it, right? Whereas maybe in the first years I would just come up with really stupid ideas, but because I didn't know them professionally, I didn't know how they play and how conservative or risk averse they are, right? And so that's one of the cons that doesn't really sound like a con, but it's really, really bad because ultimately it prevents you from suggesting new ideas and coming up with stuff because you know already how they're going to get canceled or dismissed, right? Um, my answer is not going to be very exhaustive, but I think like I can give this sort of like lateral thinking answer that maybe it's more valuable than going over the same things that you would get everywhere else, or you Google on, you search on Google and they're like, yeah, don't do business with friends and family because it's like A, B, C, D, right? Yeah, we all know that. Very specific things. I think I can go with this one. And then pros, like the other side of the coin of knowing your friends too well is that you can actually play politics with them. Like, and because I know that they don't really listen to the podcast that much, I'm just gonna go over it over here. So no, jokes aside, like if you know them very, very well, you can play politics with them. But soft politics, not like kind of politics that like, oh, I know, like I have to play this sort of like Game of Thrones scheme. No, but if you know that some of your business partners are like they like to come up with new ideas, just tell them, oh, look, I had this idea. I think it's not great. And just kind of like discard it yourself publicly. And maybe they'll really like, look, no, actually, it's a really good idea. We should do this, that, and that, which is something that happens quite often on MarsBased. So you can use it to your advantage. But also pros is like, you know, if you're really, 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 I mean, they normally they say like, you know, become friends with your partners, not become partners with your friends. Um, but to me, it's like one of the pros of partnering with my friends was that I knew them beforehand. I've seen them in all kinds of situations. I had traveled with them. I cried with them. I fought with them. We've experienced all kind of things together. And so you know how they're going to react in all kinds of situations. And also, you know exactly what their life moment is, right? Because I know that their vital moment changed whenever they got married, they had children, they had to pay a mortgage and whatnot. And maybe if you're not really close to your co-founders in that regard, and you don't know this kind of information, you might not be calculating risks accordingly, right? And I think they really appreciate that I have toned down my level of suggestions of risk taking in the company because they have transitioned to like a few years back. They had children, they bought houses and stuff, and like so, they're in a life where in a life moment that they have to be like more calm and they're more conservative maybe, and so that allowed me to be more aligned with them. And I think it's been for the better. Our meetings are almost non-existent. Maybe we chat for 10 minutes a week or something like that, not even that. And we're perfectly aligned just because we managed to sync up and coordinate with the way we think and see things. So I think that's definitely one of the advantages of conducting business with not only friends, your best friends. And the second question from Herman is that how do you manage to establish a company culture around remote working and to motivate your team to go to be aligned on the same direction, which is something that we talk a lot about because our company has been officeless since the inception of the company, so since 2014. And it's really, again, if you Google what's the disadvantage of creating remote environments, they'll be like, they're not creative and it's hard to transmit company culture. Yeah, we all know that. Okay, we all know that. Um, but how do you motivate the team? Well, the thing is like I don't think we've ever had to motivate the team. Like if you have to motivate the team, there's something fundamentally wrong in your company. Like I can understand that people lose motivation over time, but in most cases, I've seen this in my previous companies. Unfortunately, it's because their work has no purpose. Let me give you an example. It's like you are a developer, or you're a functional analyst, you're an architect, and they don't share with you the long term, not even the midterm, because that's supposed to be like secret, something like catch 22. And so their life becomes not meaningless, but directionless because like, oh, today I'm in this project. This project finishes next week. I don't know what I'm going to do next week. And and because they don't even know, like maybe they have a career path that most companies they completely forget about because um they are living hand to mouth with salaries. They cannot really execute all they want. And so I think that one of the things that we do particularly well is we're very transparent with everything. It's like you kind of always know what's your next project and what's going to be your next step. What do you have to work on if you want to be upgraded in salary and or position, right? So if you want to become a tech lead and you're a developer in MarsBased, you have to do this. It's usually doing something like, achieving a certain level of English, managing a project, at least being self-sufficient and independent in one project, and achieving a certain level of technical proficiency and excellence, and this and that we reevaluate continuously, right? So we have one-to-ones frequently. There's one with Lady, head of people, every quarter. And there's another one with the CTO with less frequency, but at least twice a year, you're going to talk to the CTO. And 1, 2, 3 times a year, you talk to me as well, right? So there's always like this constant conversation going on a personal level, on a financial level, on a career level, on a technical level, and kind of project level detail, right? And so we give people a sense of belonging in the company and to compensate for the remoteness, which is something that it's a problem in and of itself, because we don't see each other every week. But when we actually meet in our get-togethers, Martian days, company retreat, when not, we see there's a huge spike in motivation, right? So that's why we try to keep them pretty frequent, like 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year, so that people become engaged really with they bond deeper with their partners. We then online we do a lot of stuff like virtual coffee on Fridays, and we do the Martian tapas, which is kind of like get lunch together while somebody explains some concepts on project on Tuesdays, middays. We do online hackathons and stuff like that. A lot of collaboration, a lot of chit chat, so that we can have some time together outside of work. Sometimes we just like meet on a Friday afternoon to play games together for a couple hours, right? So I think that we speak, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Just because we are a small company, we can be on top of these things. If you really grow and you grow too fast, most companies don't put the process in place. They don't tweak them. They don't refine them, and they lose the efficacy of these things over time. And they kind of lose it if there's too much team rotation. As in, you burn people out, or people leave your company pretty often. So that's bad. And people are not going to bond with people, because at the end, even if they're still for like 5 years, like I don't care. Like I don't care about being friends with this person who just joined, because I know that in less than a year he's gone, or in 3 months she's gone. Like, what's the point, right? You start meeting new people, right? Whereas with the companies like ours, that we lose less than a developer a year, maybe one every 2 years in average. People really take the time to get to know each other, because they're like, yeah, I know that on average people stay 5 years in our company, and we're not even 9 years. So, you got people that are 7 years into the company. So they get to know each other and they talk every day, and they're like, they become friends in real life. But I think also not for every kind of company. But yeah, great question. And thank you for that. I think we got time. Yeah, let's do a couple quick ones before wrapping this up. I want to keep it under half an hour. Let's see if I can do it. Francisco from Everest. Great person. Thank you for the questions. Yeah, it's been a long time without talking. I think we haven't talked since before the pandemic, but we talked about doing certain things. And I think he was the first person I pitched the idea of doing a podcast with MarsBased. I was like, yeah, you guys should do it. Maybe we can sponsor it. And then we kind of, the whole pandemic kind of like wiped out all the conversations. But let's go with it. It's a pretty long one. It's also two questions. The first one is, long story short, is what motivated you to create a company? Because he says, like, it's very, very common that talking to friends and family, so it's always like, there's always ideas coming up, but it's very rare that people start executing them, right? Everybody has got ideas. Nobody wants to really work on those ideas. What motivated you to kind of take that step, that giant leap of faith? I'll be honest. We used to have dinners together with my two co-founders, Xavi and Jordi. And we always discussed like how our work life sucked. We used to work for other consultancies, and we were fed up with them. And we're like, my boss sucks, the project sucks, we're delayed for 1 year and a half, the company's not making money, we're firing a lot of people, the quality levels in this company is horrendous. And it was like, and Jordi was always like, we should team up and create something, maybe just work as freelancers. For context, Xavi and Jordi had worked as freelancers before, but I had never worked with them. So he was always pushing the idea, like, every dinner, every month or every 2 weeks, I don't remember. It's like, we should create a company, or we should start up something, work together. Because even if we don't make millions like these motherfuckers, we will do, let's strive to make some money, to live well, and not have to stress about other people's problems, and just like work on things we like and pick the projects we like, right? And so eventually that led to starting the company. It was Jordi's, kind of like, it was never my idea. People have always the conception that just because I'm the CEO, I'm the public person for the company, and I'm the face of the company because I'm on social media, and then, like, I run the podcast, start brand events and whatnot. But no, I never thought about becoming an entrepreneur. I always wanted to work for Google. And so I had to actually stop my application process at Google, because we decided to create the company. So my kudos to Jordi for like pushing, relentlessly pushing for well over a year. And we eventually said, like, fuck it, if we're going to try it, let's do it now. We're all so fed up and burned out with our companies that if we don't do it now that we're 28, we're not going to do it when we're 30 something or 40, right? So my thanks to Jordi, because without him, this wouldn't have been possible. And the second one, also from Francisco. Well, we got a few more. We got like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'll do another episode. I want to keep this under half an hour. The second question is because of Start Grind, which is an event that we organize at Start Grind for those not familiar with MarsBased, or too familiar with MarsBased, not so familiar with Start Grind. You've got contact with a lot of entrepreneurs. What do you think are the main excuses people use not to start up something? What are the main barriers, so to speak, right? Wow. Yeah, I think that, and we also suffer from this at the very beginning. If it's first company, it always happens that you don't want to launch too early because you think you're gonna burn your reputation or your chances with people, and you don't launch until you have the best name, and the best logo and the best, the slickest website, and your business cards are printed, and everything figured out. And the truth is, no one gives a shit about your first day. So it's better to launch, like say you're launched and you don't have anything, because even if somebody is remotely interested and could actually have seen your fucking LinkedIn post when you have 100 followers, maybe, that is probably a really bad quality lead. Even if it would help you to get started, normally things take a while to kind of like coalesce and settle and, kind of like merge into something. And sales cycles are long. You're never going to sell. You're never have a meaningful conversation on day one. You launch your website, day one, you've got 0 visits. Maybe you've got 15 visits from like your mom, your dad, your siblings, and a few friends and somebody else on LinkedIn. But the truth is, like, you launch for absolutely no fucking buddy on the first day. And I always advise people to kind of like start selling even before they have built anything. Why? Because on average, you will sell something on your 7th conversation with somebody, right? So, have a first meeting. Maybe you don't have a website. They don't even check your website, right? They might check your website whenever you're closer to signing a deal. Maybe they want to have more information and whatnot. But if you can give that information maybe over phone, they will not want to check a website. You don't need business cards. You don't need to have the best name. All startups that we know change their name, their logo, their founding team, their market, their product a billion times. I have invested in 20 plus companies as business angel, and I've seen, I would say that 2/3 of them, they changed all of the things that they were, all of the things described on their pitch deck, like logo, name, target market, B2B or B2C, founding team, advisors, investors. All of these changed. Product. How many, like all startups pivot. Right? So your first idea is never going to be great. What you have to sell is like what you're building and what people need. So if you launch something, you build something that you haven't previously validated, that's quite the recipe for failure. Whereas if you build something based on all the conversations we've had with people, like, I want to build this. What about, would you help me with this? Maybe just like, create a simple landing page on fucking Squarespace, Wix, or whatever, and have people sign up and ask them questions. And if they really want to pay for something, that would be a good starting point. So I think this excuse of, I don't have a co-founder, I don't have a website yet, I don't have the logo, I don't know how I'm going to monetize. It's like, fuck this shit. Just like go ship it, launch it to the world. And it's going to take months before you sell something, right? Or before you achieve a certain critical mass of people interested in your company or your product. So Reid Hoffman, famous founder of LinkedIn, said, if you're not ashamed of your product, you launch too late, right? And so that kind of like sums it up. I think that's pretty much everything from my side. Half an hour. Let's wrap it up here. I would like to give a company update, but I'll do it on the next one. Just wishing you great end of the holidays, because this summer is coming to a wrap right now. This should be published in the last week of August. So happy to talk to you. Thanks for your attention. Remember, if you like the podcast, hit like and subscribe on YouTube, share it, give it a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whichever platform that you're listening this on. That will be really, really helpful. And again, if you want to send some questions, not only to me, to somebody else in the team, we can have the people in the team answering us, send questions to our developers, to Leire, to my co-founders, Xavi and Jordi, to the Start Brain team, Barcelona. Also happy to have them on the podcast and answer questions. And if, nothing else from my side, we can wrap it up here. Have a great day and see you on the next episode. Peace.